shutdown. So standing next to me is Beth, and she is the CEO of 3 Square, and I'm going to give her the opportunity to convey what resources they are providing for the state of Nevada here in southern Nevada, and similar to what they are doing in northern Nevada, and take you through the data and exactly what occurred over the weekend and what we plan on processing in the next near future, dependent on the federal government. So, Beth?
Sure. Well, welcome to 3 Square. As the governor said, my name is Beth Martino. I am the CEO here at 3 Square. Our mission is to make sure that no one in our community goes hungry. So every day we are here sending food to food pantries and programs across the 4 counties that we serve in southern Nevada to make sure that when people come in, not knowing where their next meal is coming from, that they have a place to go for help and they know where to find food. Over the weekend, we activated an emergency response plan in response to the federal government shutdown. But over the last 4 months, we had already seen a 16% jump in the number of people coming in looking for food assistance. That need has just risen more sharply over the last month as a result of the shutdown. So we've been serving federal workers and others impacted by the shutdown all during that time. But beginning this weekend, we became especially concerned for our SNAP recipients and others that may be affected by disruptions in federal benefit programs. So we began by operating 4 emergency distributions here in the Valley over the weekend, where we served over, I think, 3,200 households, sent food for about 4,000. So we know there are still folks out there that we need to get the word out and let them know where to go for assistance. In addition to that, this week we'll be operating, I think we have 25 additional emergency distributions that are already scheduled. And that's in addition to what we do every day, serving dozens of food pantries and programs across the Valley. So no matter where you are here in southern Nevada, we want you to be able to find food assistance near you, and you can do that on our website at 3square.org. We are surging food to all of our food pantries and programs that can accept it, that can handle additional clients coming in and can accept additional food. And we'll also be increasing our home delivery programs for folks who have transportation challenges or mobility issues that would prevent them from getting out into the community. Right now, we know 500,000 people here in Nevada are without the SNAP benefits that they rely on to feed themselves and their families. So it's incredibly important that we let them know that they can find assistance by going to 3square.org, entering their zip code, and finding a food pantry or program that are near them. They can find ways to contact us if they need additional assistance, and we want to help them during this time.
Please let them know what happened over the weekend.
Yeah, so at our 4 distributions, we were here in the Valley inviting folks to come out and find food assistance. We served over 1,000 at UNLV, 1,000 at College of Southern Nevada, and then nearly 1,000 more between 2 other church partners that we have here. We'll be continuing those same types of efforts with drive-through and walk-up distributions designed to reach folks that are impacted by the government shutdown. Across all those locations, we saw federal workers coming out. We saw folks who were impacted by the disruption in SNAP benefits, and many others who needed food assistance during this time. So we'll continue that work as the weeks go by.
Perfect. And additionally, as you probably came into the facility here, you noticed the National Guard's presence. And so as part of an effort to help facilitate packaging and delivery and transportation, I activated the National Guard here in the state of Nevada for a 2-week deployment as we figure out what's going on in, back east at the Beltway. And while we go through the legal processes that recently occurred over the weekend, and we have answers to those processes and determine the longevity of this shutdown and how it directly affects the states individually. So we're doing everything we can as the state legally to get through the monetary benefit that we can provide to the food banks. Now, an important piece on this is the difference between the SNAP program and the food banks is the food banks leverage their buying power because of the bulk buying power. So $1 of contribution is equal to 3 meals. Is that correct?
That's right.
That's correct. To 3 meals. Traditionally, it's different than when you receive your SNAP benefits on your EBT card and you go directly to a food provider such as any grocery store that you frequent that accepts those cards. the dollar value is less than what occurs at the food bank. So what's the difference in that aspect? Well, because it's distribution, right? It's easier to go to your grocery store versus to go to a pantry, a food pantry, or an actual food bank, and those distribution networks. So transportation is involved in that issue and that hurdle. So we're doing everything we can to maximize the services so that each individual has the opportunity to feed their families. Now, one of the key issues in any emergency, and I quantify this as an emergency, is communication, ability to get the word out. And that's why I appreciate the media being here today to hear directly from Beth and what they provide in 3 Square and what 3 Square provides to the pantry service and delivery services, and also what the state is doing to help eliminate the ultimate problem. So, questions?
So the 38 million buys somewhat buys a few weeks of food.
We anticipate it's going to be sufficient through the month of November.
Is the state prepared to step in and do more if that time were to lapse?
Absolutely. Now we're going through the triaging process of different bank accounts, for lack of a better term, to figure out how we can leverage those monies in totality to provide it to this particular problem. So part of that approximately $40 million, $8+ million was through ARPA funds, the traditional ARPA funds we received from Washington, D.C. previously. There's a lot of projects funded via the ARPA funds, but some of them are not in completion or they have stalled, so we will look for revisions of those funds to provide to this particular problem.
There was talk about a possible special session to address this. Have you decided on?
Yes. Well, we're going to have a lot of those questions answered this week, hopefully, and as soon as today, hopefully, as a result of the legal actions that are taking place, and we'll make a decision based on what answers we get this week.
Just talking about the legal landscape and those decisions on Friday from the East Coast, have you had any communication with the federal government on how they're approaching this? I know Trump said his lawyers were unsure if they could properly follow the order. Has there been any communication with the federal government on that?
No, we are in constant communication with the White House and the administration, trying to get answers on a continual basis. And a lot of those questions were presented as we were in the early throes of this process. And what is legal and what is not legal? What makes it eligible for reimbursement in the long term from state funds provided? And what would be the easiest way to provide funding, not funding, but product, services to our constituents in the existing situation. Specifically to your question, sir, no, we don't have any answers as of today on the legal actions. I anticipate we will later, if not today, later in the week. So.
And more specifically, Governor, have you heard anything about when SNAP funds are going to be replenished now that courts have said that they need to be refilled?
No, that was to his question. But I don't want anybody to get overexcited on this, pending success through the litigation and the ability for the federal government to fund SNAP benefits. That doesn't happen overnight. You have the process of litigation, which usually takes time, and then the standing up of the systems. And do those federal employees, are they present currently that manage that system? So there's a lot of questions that still have to be answered. And we're keeping the eyes on the ball because it's important. People deserve the services that the state and the government needs to provide to their constituents, and that's what we're working through.
And I believe during the interim finance committee, there was discussion about how the $8 million or so had already been dispersed. That $30 million that was approved, what's the status of that? Has it been transferred over to the food banks?
That would be, Beth would probably be better served to answer that, but that becomes immediately eligible. So the state, through their normal financial processes, will distribute that money because it's not nuanced, it's not new, because we've done it continually during previous time. But you mentioned the previous $8+ million. That was through the WIC program, Women, Infants, and Children, and that was done through the ARPA process, which we hope will get us through the end of December in that system. In the SNAP system, that was the intent of the $30 million.
So you have kind of a roadmap through November and then hopefully through the end of December. how long can the state of Nevada or any other state kind of hold out?
That's a
against
great question.
this kind of thing?
If it's decided through the legislative process that we dip into the in-fund balance, and eventually, if it reaches the threshold where the rainy day account would be leveraged, that's the questions we'll continually manage and monitor and get answers to. Now, it's under a 5% in-fund balance, which leverages the rainy day fund, and we are not currently in that position. So.
We're here because of a government shutdown, right? And have you tried any lobbying on behalf of,
Absolutely. I'll cut you off on your question. Yes, we are in a government shutdown. I have talked to the federal government to let we need to reopen. We need a clean CR presented, and we need the Democratic senators to make the decision to reopen the governor. And those conversations have been constant. I don't want to use the word constant. They have been frequent, and we're continuing, hopefully, to communicate our desires. We've expressed our desires as a state government and as the governor of the state of Nevada, and we need to figure that out sooner than later.
During the IFC meeting, the welfare administrator mentioned the idea of using cash assistance to be able to load up the cards, but you thought
we don't have that mechanism. So the difference between like WIC and TANF, that's a state. It's a federal into a state process. SNAP is a federal into a private vendor process. We don't have access into that system in order to affect that delivery. If we were to stand up our own, you're looking at a 6-week process. And the additional piece on that is a classified, sequestered database of exactly who is on SNAP. And that's an important piece for here in this food bank and how that process occurred. They don't ask whether you're receiving SNAP benefits. They don't ask federal government employees whether they have the ability to pay and or receive the benefits. Come one, come all, because we don't have time to figure out those needs. Actually, they'll be on a volunteer basis. Three Square will be asking individuals their situation, but it's not mandatory that they provide it. $30 million is a lot of money, right? And you want to ensure that you're dotting the I's and crossing the T's and doing your due diligence on the actual integrity of that process.
We've already seen a couple of people already, a 70-year-old woman walking out with meat in her purse. What do you say to the folks who are going hungry?
I think it's, we feel the best way to describe that is we understand it. We understand the role of government in that process, and it's a mandate. It would be malpractice not to address that need. And we're going to do everything in our power as a state government and as a federal government, hopefully, as part of the solution, and our local volunteers and food banks and pantries and all those systems that are put in place for daily lives that are being spun up for emergency situations as today.
Do you have a position on the Democratic reasoning for maintaining or not voting for a bill?
Well, obviously, it's
regarding
through the ACA process, right? And unfortunately, instead of good policy, it's becoming a leverage point. And so that's the linchpin in that process. I think it could be better served as a normal practice in the time remaining in the fiscal year to work through the ACA issues. The important piece right now is the immediacy, SNAP benefits, and feeding our constituents.
Yeah, time for a couple more questions. For drawing on the rainy day fund, on the one hand, you could have it fall on the tax revenue threshold.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
For using the rainy day fund, there is the tax revenue threshold, but there's also what is something every Yeager is called for, which is the joint emergency fiscal declaration. I was wondering if that was something that you would consider or been talking about.
This isn't a fiscal declaration. The state is not bankrupt in that need. This is a completely different mechanism, and our legal counsel says we have to tread lightly in those decisions. And right now, we're not able to actuate that presentation you provided in that space.
Are there any other things that you're concerned about as the shutdown drags on? I know we hear about FAA, we hear about FAA, traffickers and stuff like that, but any others, and SNAP we're here for, but anything else that's concerning you as the governor of Nevada as a shutdown?
It's the whole process, right? It's the whole process that the federal government helps us do our economy and do our daily lives and our quality of life. You know, you mentioned the FAA, it's the TSA, employees, the military, and everything else that goes as part of our nation's system. I think they're all equal, but more importantly, this rises to a higher level. Feeding people and ensure that they have a good quality of life for them and their families, I think that rises to the most important piece of what we're dealing with.
Do you see a situation where your National Guard could be extended past this 2 weeks?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and that'll be done through emergency work program and then eventually an emergency IFC meeting. And we'll make that decision, like I said, this week because it takes a long time to set up those programs, schedule the meetings, and actually go through the appropriate legislative process to get those answers. Listen, I want to everybody out there, the state of Nevada, all our constituents, and you in the media, I want to thank you. I want to thank you to the utmost of my heart to get the word out. And it's important to get the word out, and Beth could attest to this. If people don't understand the situation they're in, the fear creeps in, and we are here to provide the solutions for them. And hopefully it's going to be a short-term solution, and we go back to the traditional system, but we are prepared to take action if it is not short-term. So please communicate to your constituents and provide the information. 3 Square of Southern Nevada and Food Bank of Northern Nevada is the solution to our current problem. Thank you.
You would ask Beth a couple of more questions as well, is that okay? Beth?
Yeah, I'll take a couple more.
Thank you. Beth, so,
Thank you, Beth.
Of course, thank you, thanks, Governor.
Don't let them take advantage of you.
So you heard this, he told you guys to be nice to me.
So lots of money from the state obviously helps your cause a lot. Tell me about just as you're looking at this unfold, any kind of feelings of frustration as far as in every other government shutdown, the president has allocated funds to fund SNAP. This time around, it only happened because courts forced it to happen. Tell me about your feelings around that.
Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Governor Lombardo, everyone in state government, members of our legislature who made this happen, who made this investment in both of the food banks here in Nevada, because that is allowing us to help people feed their families. It's certainly frustrating talking to people at our food distributions and finding out that they don't have SNAP benefits, that they aren't receiving a paycheck despite showing up for their federal job every day. So the solution to the problem is to resolve this shutdown, and we hope that that will happen quickly.
Beth, so you're working with about 1/3 of the budget right now. Is there something that families, aren't receiving in those boxes to make sure that that funding lasts? What is missing from these boxes that people would usually get?
Well, the funding itself is a remarkable investment, between the 2 food banks receiving almost $38 million. But we also know that SNAP benefits every month are more than $90 million in the state of Nevada, so it's simply not enough. There is no way that philanthropy can fill the gap that's being created by this disruption to SNAP benefits. So it's less a matter of what's going into the boxes and bags that we're distributing, and more a matter that it's not a replacement for the SNAP program.
Just to clarify, you said there's now 25 distribution centers that you mentioned?
We have 25 emergency distributions this week, in addition to dozens of other regularly scheduled food pantries and distributions that are occurring across our 4 counties that we serve.
How are the lines today? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Have you heard about how the lines are today?
I haven't heard anything yet this morning, so I don't know. Over the weekend, we did have hundreds of people lining up for our distributions.
Susan Lee last week talked about that it really takes about more than $200 million to go towards a food bank in order to make up for the 500,000 people that are no longer on SNAP. What is the amount of money that you think you would need in order to sustain a whole month with the new people, the 500,000 people that are coming to these food banks?
It's hard to say because there's no way that food banks or philanthropy can replace the SNAP program. But we know at a minimum, our SNAP recipients here in Nevada receive $90 million over the course of a month. But in addition to that, a piece of the story that I think is also important is the impact on our retailers across the state, because those dollars are spent in grocery stores and markets all across Nevada. So the economic impact that is created there is quantified over a year at more than $1 billion across the state of Nevada. So you've got folks even in our retail environments that are impacted by this, because they don't have people coming in and spending dollars in those grocery stores, in those markets. And so when we start talking about how to quantify the impact and what we would need, we know that every dollar, every donation that happens right now will make our mission possible. So every pound of food, every dollar, every volunteer hour is essential right now, but it's impossible for that to ever fill this gap. What we really need is the federal government to reopen, and we need to get SNAP benefits paid and other benefit programs as well, and our federal workers need to start receiving paychecks.
Let's take 2 more questions.
Yeah.
On Saturday, you talked about Three Square's phone ringing off the hook. Could you describe and kind of go into the amount of support from the community when it comes to people reaching out to volunteer? What's that been like, and is more needed?
One of the incredible things about Nevadans is that they step up to serve their neighbors, and we have certainly seen that already happening just over the last few weeks. We have people coming out to help at our food distributions, volunteering their time, stopping in here to drop off food donations or make financial donations when they themselves, in some cases, are food insecure. So to me, there's never a better example of the giving spirit of Nevadans, of the entrepreneurial spirit, and people offering logistical support and parking lots for us to do distributions. So we are fortunate at Three Square to be the beneficiary of the community spirit that we have here that's making this happen. And we do need more. Of course, and over the last few weeks, I think we've been pretty clear at both food banks that we need more donations of time, funds, and food to make this happen. So we appreciate everything that's happening, and we hope the community will continue to be there alongside us as we try to meet this need. We'll take one more question.
And if you could talk about the workload of those volunteers, I mean, it's 25 extra distribution events happening this week. There were more this weekend as well. Are you getting in enough extra volunteers to make it so they're not totally overworked? And what's the, talk about what morale is like at these distribution centers. Are they just feeling completely exhausted?
Well, the volunteers are incredible. This weekend I was with over 200 volunteers at UNLV, and they were really excited to be here to serve their neighbors, and that's what we see from our volunteers all the time. We have volunteers here at Three Square every single day, and they are happy to show up and help serve their community. But our staff here, our staff at the Food Bank of Northern Nevada, I'm sure are the same. We're all working around the clock, so it is in a sustained emergency response, it will begin to take a toll. So again, we're calling on the community to help support us, but we know that ultimately the solution to the situation we're in is to see the government reopen, to see SNAP benefits paid, to see federal workers receiving a paycheck, and that's what we need to try to help and put an end to this and get folks back to where they need to be. So thank you guys very much. It was great to have you all here. I know our press team can help follow up if you need some other details.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.